With 11 million views on YouTube, surely everyone that has some affection to shooting has seen the video from T.REX ARMS where they test whether airsoft can translate to actual firearm skills. In short, the video proves that dry firing just works. Unlike other creators who have made their own reaction videos on this topic, we are going to bring you an entirely different view on the subject. And that comes from the fact that both me and my brother started out with airsoft many years ago and at some point got into shooting with firearms as well. So we have been through that whole process, and although we can definitely agree that there are some skills that you gain from doing airsoft, there are also some serious pitfalls to it, and we will dive to those in this video. So in this video we will cover our experience with both airsoft guns and firearms. We will go over the pitfalls that we had to go through and how we overcame them, which might help you as well. Then we will go over the positives of having done airsoft the way that we did it. We will then form a conclusion out of all these findings, and at last we will go onto the range, do some standard drills to see where our skill level is at right now. Yet as always, let's do some brotherly advice first. So brother behind the camera, do you have something for our viewers today?
Well, yes, in fact I do. Because often people tend to think that their way of shooting is the one that will allow them to protect themselves. However, most people only practice a fraction of what protecting yourself with a firearm actually means. It's not just precision, it's not just fast shooting, it's not just CQB or recce, but all of that along with other things like target identification and in the worst case even TCC knowledge up to a point where a professional can take over.
Exactly, it's just like being a Swiss pocket knife. Now before going any further, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to stay notified of our upcoming videos. Also make sure to comment down below, because that will help us with the YouTube algorithm. And beside that, go have a look at ReconBrothers.com to get yourself high quality tactical equipment and at the same time support this channel by doing so. All your support is appreciated. So let's begin with our experience. Back in 2015, when my brother and I were still pretty fresh college students studying physics, we got ourselves into airsoft somehow and loved doing it. In 2019 we began learning from actual professionals, whereas one was a former SOF guy, and he taught us all about the basics of stances, moving, shooting, all with airsoft guns. Then at some point we got the opportunity to do CQB seminars from professionals from the actual military, whereas one was an actual instructor in CQB and another was a SF guy in the military. Around that same time we both switched from AG to GBBR systems to get more familiar with realistic weapon systems and also realistic magazine capacities, which we not only applied to the training but also to the airsoft events that we did. And then around that same time as well, we also did our first times at a shooting range with actual firearms. In 2021 we joined a course given by a SOF SWAT instructor with 9mm pistols, and from that point on we made work to get our own licenses and weapons as well. And after that we joined 5 more courses with firearms where we focused on different disciplines to build up skills, and of course we kept on going to the range and doing our dry firing as well. So that's where we come from. Now going back to the video from T.REX ARMS, they flew over this guy from Japan to the USA known as Liku Tactical on Instagram to have a training session with him. Allegedly this guy trained only with airsoft guns to become Lucas's twin brother from another mother. He apparently only started training 3 years prior to the making of that video, and during that weekend he got to shoot with firearms for the first time ever in his life. They started off with pistol shooting, and after a couple of adjustments,
wall, all right, wall.
He basically nailed every single timed drill that they gave him.
Stand by. 4-4. Holy cow.
It quickly became clear that he has put a ton of work into becoming that good through dry firing. Now we can already tell you up front that we are no match when it comes to speed, as we have focused more on the tactical aspect of shooting, and that is what we will focus on in this video. Now let's dive into the pitfalls that we have experienced when making the shift, and let's begin with pistols, since as every experienced shooter knows that they are the hardest to master. One of the first things that we ran into when we first started shooting with a standard 9mm pistol was the difficulty to keep our left hand on the correct spot whilst shooting. This was actually one of the first things that one of our instructors mentioned to us that would be a hassle to overcome, and he was absolutely right about it. Despite having learned how to properly grip a pistol and having familiarized ourselves with it hundreds and hundreds of times already, our actual grip strength still wasn't good enough to manage the recoil of a 9mm pistol. What was doable at that time, however, was a .22 caliber pistol. It is still more than with a gas blowback pistol, but only slightly. Now, what did we do to overcome the difficulty with a 9mm? Well, we had to dive deep into the details of gripping a pistol properly. And by that, we of course had to note down different tips from instructors, not only from courses, but also from various sources, like on YouTube, for example. And with these tips, we went to the range and tried those different things out to see what essentially worked for us personally. If you want us to make a video on these details of gripping, let us know in the comments and we might consider making it. A good tip we can already give you up front: when you are about to shoot and you have your hands positioned, have a friend of yours make a mark on your thumbs such that you can visually have a reference of whether your hands move or not during shooting. The next thing that we experienced happened during the very first pistol course that we joined. And the thing there was that we were suddenly introduced to this huge amount of freedom that we never experienced before, meaning that we could actually walk around with a chambered, holstered weapon on our belt. Here we couldn't help having this fear in the back of our mind of shooting ourselves in the leg or foot when holstering or drawing a pistol. Which is kind of weird, because we already did that hundreds of times, just not with real bullets. Man, I can't wait for the day when we start doing IWB stuff. And having seen guys shooting themselves in the leg on the internet, and also having seen some fellas on the airsoft field shooting themselves in the leg during holstering or drawing with an airsoft pistol, only made matters even worse. However, to us this was only the first time that we experienced this. On our second course we already got over that. Most don't think about something as banal as this, but it is something you have to overcome in your head. Something that is far more difficult to overcome is called flinching. This is when you start to anticipate your shots and shoot too low. And this is actually something that we also saw in the T.REX ARMS video with Liku. He experienced the exact same thing, and it is in fact something that every new shooter has to go through.
6.31. All right, so we dropped a couple low here. And that's you were aiming for this? Left. Yes. So what's happening is all you're doing is you're driving the gun down, so we're going to fix that.
The phenomenon here is that when someone new starts shooting, their rounds end up quite well on target at first, but after a couple of more rounds they usually tend to go to the low left of the chart if they are right hand dominant. This is because their body actually starts to anticipate for the explosion and the recoil, making them actually push the gun down without them even knowing before the gun goes off, making them hit the target on the low left. The difficulty here is that it's a natural reflex of your body, and reflexes are very hard to overcome. The solution to this is threefold and takes time. You have to relearn how to be surprised by the shot, then there is the ball and dummy drill, and then you have to train your grip strength. Relearning to be surprised is done by pulling the trigger in such a slow fashion that you have no clue when it goes off. And when doing this you will immediately notice that you will shoot better results. The thing is, however, that this is only applicable to beginners, because at some point you will have to learn where your pistol goes off in order to become better. Next is the ball and dummy drill. This is controversial to some because it does not help you solve the problem, but what it does do is help you identify if you still flinch. How this is done? Well, you or a buddy simply load up a magazine with live rounds and some dummies randomly into it, which you'll shoot. Then if you shoot and you hit a dummy and you still flinch, then there is still work to do. Which brings us to the next part, which is training your grip strength. Why? Because if you're stronger in your hands, you'll have an easier job at managing that pistol and also have more confidence in doing so. So how is that done? Well, simply by dry firing and also going to the range to shoot live fire regularly. Some claim that they push the gun down directly after ignition of the round, which may work for them, but we cannot imagine that guys shooting as fast as Lucas or even as Mil-Spec Mojo intentionally push their gun down with each shot.
1.5.
What?
1.5.
1.5?
It is just physically impossible to do that in our eyes, and from what we've experienced, it all comes down to having a solid grip.
Contact! Captain!
Why these bullets usually end up on the low left has to do with pulling the trigger wrongly. This doesn't necessarily have to do with the positioning of your trigger finger, where some claim that it is too much to the left or to the right, but rather by making sure that you pull that trigger back nice and straight when you break that wall.
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 All right.
Wall. From the wall.
The only thing to get over this is by dry firing and seeing what your sights do when you pull that trigger. A red dot is a very handy tool for this because it allows you to see every small motion thanks to that fine dot. Another good indication method for this is by having someone putting a piece of brass or a bullet on the front of your slide, and when you pull that trigger wrongly, it will usually fall off. If you do it correctly, it shouldn't even move. Another pretty hard thing to overcome is blinking. This is just a natural reflex of your body reacting to the explosion of a shot, and is something that almost every shooter encounters at the beginning of a range session. The only thing to overcome this is by sending rounds. Only if you shoot enough rounds on a day or shoot on a very regular basis, you will get over that. And to be honest, this is something that both my brother and I also still need to work on. This is also one of the reasons why they let you shoot a couple of rounds at the beginning of a course before the lessons begin. Above these, there is also the matter of having a good form, and one of these is bending your arm slightly so that you can control the recoil well. However, with an airsoft pistol there is no consequence if you do it wrongly, yet with a real firearm it leaves it quite uncontrollable. This is, for example, something that my brother still tends to do, and is of course a bad habit created by doing airsoft. This can only be changed by doing reps and keeping your form in mind. The last hurdle we want to mention with pistols is about muscle fatigue. Once you understand how much force you have to apply on a real firearm, you will quickly notice, even by dry firing, how fast your hands and forearms fatigue at first. This is because you basically have to grip your pistol as hard as you can without your hands beginning to shake or them beginning to hurt. And this is actually quite a lot if you're not used to it. And yet again, the key to learn this is by dry firing. Now if we switch over to rifles, there are some other interesting things to talk about as well. And the first one that we noticed back then was the massive difference in pulling strength required to pull back a bolt of a rifle. Comparing this to an airsoft gun, like for example a gas blowback rifle like this one, which is supposedly as realistic as possible, the difference is quite high. I mean, for example, I can literally pull it with my pinky, and that is something you simply cannot do with an actual rifle. Same goes for the racking of a slide from a pistol. Racking a slide from an airsoft gun is basically like nothing, like you can see. And once you switch over to a real firearm, it makes you doubt your own masculinity. Now the key to do this properly with a real firearm is to not just pull back with only one hand, but also use your other hand to push, making you use opposite forces, which makes it a lot easier to manage. Next thing is recoil, and although a lot of blowback airsoft rifles are marketed as having a recoil as powerful as a real rifle, that is absolutely not the case, though it is a nice feature to have. To be clear, we're talking about a comparison with rifles that shoot 2 to 3 rounds and not 308 rounds, because those are a whole other piece of cake. And yes, we have shot with the electric TM recoil shocks, we have shot with GBRs like this one, we even shot with DAS GBLS systems back in the day, so we know what they all feel like. It's not as difficult as managing the recoil of a pistol, but there is definitely a difference to it. A rifle is far more snappier and also requires a lot more effort to stay on target with each and every single shot compared to an airsoft gun. Now, most of these things are exactly what every new shooter has to go through and has to overcome. And as shown, it is mostly solved through good dry firing drills. Now, there are some aspects that we already consider to be very natural when we started shooting with firearms for the first time. One are stances and body movements, and especially combat shooting stances and the flexibility to change between them is something that we did without thinking because of the fact that we did airsoft.
Shoot 2! Shoot 5! Shoot 5! 5! Right side! Reload! Fucking first!
Think about various shooting positions, transitioning between them, running, stopping, but also moving in teams, working around doors, clearing rooms, and more. Now, we did have trainings about these things many years ago, which certainly adds to the value of doing this stuff correctly, but you can imagine that applying this stuff in actual 4-on-4 situations only adds to the amount of XP you gain on your level up bar. Another is the aspect of manual of arms, and this is also well mentioned in the T.REX ARMS video. Most airsoft players will definitely relate to this. Once you get your first airsoft rifle or even buy a new one, you tend to usually go into your room, stand in front of a mirror fully kitted out and start doing those reloads and those up drills, and without even knowing it, you're already dry firing. Despite forces being sometimes different on a firearm, most of the handlings on an airsoft gun are exactly the same. Think about your safety, doing your tactical and your speed reloads, and what Liku showed in the video from T.REX ARMS is a prime example of that.
What is this? What are we watching?
However, things like clearing malfunctions are probably less commonly done with an airsoft gun, we would say. It is possible to do it, but then you're already training towards using an actual firearm, and that is rather rare. The fact that Liku did his malfunctions so well only indicates that he did indeed train to work with an actual firearm with all its possible complications rather than just with an airsoft gun. This because malfunctions are practically non-existing with airsoft unless there is some real technical issue with your gun. We, for example, we never did a single malfunctioning drill before we got into shooting with firearms, so we had to learn this from scratch. Now, this is also limited to the platform you are used to using. I, for example, did a course day with an AK once, which was the first time for me, and of course I was slower with it. And I can imagine that if you give Liku or Lucas another platform that is not AR-15 based, they will definitely be slower as well. Other things that you can learn from airsoft, but that are more in line with tactical shooting, are stuff like target identification, communication, working in teams, strategic planning, and also getting a sense of certain situations. Note that you do have to use airsoft in such a way that it adds to you as a training element for realistic applications. We are saying this because, as you can imagine, having a speedsoft setup with practically unlimited ammo and sliding around in an arena doesn't really add up to that. It is totally fine if you're having fun doing this, but it is probably the one thing that's the farthest away from actual firearm training and applications. That being said, it is obvious that dry firing has a huge amount of benefits, which was very well proven by Liku's performance in the video. However, dry firing alone can also create problems. A good example of this is a problem my brother had to deal with lately. The thing my brother had to deal with was that he created this habit of putting his support hand wrongly onto his pistol, whereas his thumb actually blocked the slide lock, meaning that his slide didn't lock back. Because of this, he continuously initiated tap racks, which is of course not a bad thing, but it costs valuable time. On the range we noticed this, and of course he adjusted it accordingly, but that created another issue, whereas his line of sight was different than before. Plus he is a cross-dominant shooter, so that made matters even worse, and he wasn't able to find his dot as well as before. So as just proven, it is equally as vital to shoot both regularly live and dry, such that you create this continuous feedback loop that you can adjust where needed. Now, covering all this, we can definitely agree that airsoft and or dry firing can translate certain aspects that are required to become good at shooting, but there is more than meets the eye, especially when it comes down to tactical shooting. For one, if thou suck at airsoft, thou will also suck at shooting with firearms. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you shoot well with airsoft, you will automatically shoot with firearms well as well. Same applies to static range shooting. It does not necessarily translate to tactical shooting. Also, certain firefight scenarios require a totally different approach when we're talking about airsoft versus reality. A very good example of this is that I once shot someone through a cardboard cover in a 4-on-4 CQB class with airsoft. This because my opponent wasn't aware of what was cover and what was concealment in that particular scenario. All this indicates that a combination of tactical dynamic range shooting along with 4-on-4 training, which can be airsoft, is best to face actual threats. If you think about it, this is exactly what tactical units do to train. It is never a single isolation of an aspect, but rather a conjunction of all of this together that creates a proficient outcome. Having said that, let's now head over to the range to do some shooting. So guys, we are here at the range, and as you can see, we already did a couple of warm-up drills. The drills that we will be doing are only with a pistol because we do not own a rifle yet, sadly. Anyway, the drills that we have chosen are the ones from the Tactical Hive website. You can go and check them out. They are full of awesome drills that tell you a level based upon the time that you measure, and we will be doing that with the packed shot timer today. So guys, the first drill that we have chosen is a single shot from the holster drill. Our target should be about 6 inches. This one, its A zone is 6 inches in height, but not in width, so it's a bit smaller. Anyway, these shots are from a bad take, just to tell you. And then our distance should be about 3 to 10 yards. This one is at 5 meters, which is about 5.5 yards, which we've chosen. Each of us will do the drill 3 times and show you our time, and then we will move on to the next one. So let's start with this one now. One 1.8. One 1.6. One 1.68. Okay, let's have a look at your shots. So a bit to the left, but all in the A zone as expected, and that would put me in, let's see, that would put me in the intermediate zone because it's between 1 to 2.5 seconds, so that's not bad, I'd say. So guys, now it's my turn to do the one shot from holster drill 3 times. Let's get on with it.
That was the first shot. Let's have a look. 1.8. I think it's the same as my brother. So for the second shot, I had 2.02. The last one was a bad one, but the time was 1.71. Let's look at the target. So one shot not in the A zone, but the rest really well actually. Not bad. And that would put you in what? Also intermediate. Intermediate. Okay, good job. So the next drill is the one reload one from the holster drill. This should be at 5 yards. We are here at 5.5, which is nice. And then in terms of the levels, a beginner should be doing it above 5 seconds, intermediate 3 to 5 seconds, and an advanced under 3 seconds. So let's see. This is 5.21. I had some hiccups there, but let's do it again. .83, better. I think I can do better. Come on, a good one. It sure felt like it was better. 4.75. Okay, let's have a look at the shots. All in the A zone, so good. Okay guys, so now it's my turn to do the one shot, reload, one shot. Let's have a look at how I perform. I don't have the shot timer yet. Yeah. Always still the issue that my slide doesn't lock, which is my bad. Time? Oh yes, time. Time was 5:29, so speed is quite good with all the hiccups I had. Let's go for a better one. Let's go for a better one, exactly. I don't know what's going wrong. It still doesn't lock, but it doesn't feel like my finger is in the way.
Bad habits from Airsoft, huh?
Yeah. Did I show you the time already? Or? Because it fell and now it's 16:12.
No, that's not possible. Let's do another one then.
Oh wait, maybe I can. Uh, 5:94 it was.
Okay. Come on, last one below 5 seconds. You can do it.
At least the slide stayed in place now. It's 561, so I'm a beginner.
On that level, yes. So let's have a look at the target, because I think your shots are really well. And yes, they are.
Almost everything centered, maybe this one. It's getting hard to see now.
But it's good, eh?
Yeah, it's good.
Just the time can be a little bit better. The next one is the double tap drill from the holster. Same A-zone, same distance. And the level should be a beginner above 2.5 seconds, intermediate between 1.5 and 2.5, and an advanced below 1.5. So let's see and hope for the best. I need the shot timer. $209. $1.85. And a 2.10. So let's see. So most of them inside, this one should be accounted for because it's the width was wider than this target. So well done, and I'd say then I'm in intermediate as well, right?
Could be. We have to check.
I'll check. Between 1.5 and 2.5.
Then you're intermediate.
Okay, good.
Nice job. Okay guys, my time to do 2 shots from holster. Let's see how I do. That was a bad one. Needed to look for my dot. Time was 2:31.
Okay, that's still inside the intermediate zone, so.
Yeah, but outside of the zone.
Ah, okay.
This was 2.03 with a split of 0.14, but my second shot was also out of the zone.
Okay.
This was clearly a bit slower for the follow-up shot. 285 with a split of 0.81. Let's have a look. So these two, this one, this is still fine, and these were out of the A zone.
Okay. So we would say somewhere in between beginner and
Yeah.
okay. So the last drill is the Mozambique drill. This one is at 7 yards, so we moved a bit back to 7 meters, which is a bit more, but we'll do fine. And then the levels are, the beginner should be above 4 seconds, intermediate between 2 and 4, and advanced underneath 2. So let's see what this says. .91.
That's fine.
Ah, I'm out.
Okay, let's not count that one.
I need to reload.
Okay, then I'm cutting the video for a moment. Okay, let's continue the Mozambique drill.
Yeah. .23. .64.
I think that's your best time.
Yeah. So let's see. So this, I think that this is always my second shot of the double tap. I still have this tendency to draw it to the down left, so we'll have to adjust that. But these ones are always in the head, so that's pretty good. And this would put me in time, I'd say.
I think intermediate.
Intermediate, yes, but of course I have to shoot a bit better as well.
All right, guys, last drill for me, also the Mozambique drill. Let's have a look. This was 316 with a .84 for aiming at the head. Had a slight issue with the wall there. It's 438. Let's have a look. 333.
Okay.
Let's have a look at the shots. This one is one of my shots, which is a bit too low. Then this one, somewhere in the chaos of these shots, and then also pretty much in the head. So yeah, guys, we have to improve, which was expected. For that we have to shoot more often, because now it's been 3 months. So dry firing alone is obviously not enough. Then also we have to admit, when we film the shooting, it makes us quite nervous, especially because there's no backing down from this. So shooting relaxed always gives better results, which you can see on the other targets. And additionally, I'm also using a security level 2 holster, which takes a bit more time and also has some flaws, like it's damaging my finger, which is not too bad, but every inconvenience always takes time.
So guys, that's pretty much it for our stuff on the range here. We're going to get my brother a genuine Safariland holster and see whether he will improve in the future, but we'll let you know all about that. So let's head back to the studio. So now that we are back from the range, brother, what can we conclude from this video?
Well, to answer that question, Airsoft can indeed translate to firearm skills, yet it is not so much an advantage when it comes to shooting itself, but quite good to learn tactical combat shooting skills like teamwork, comms, close distance engagements, and even to test out your kit.
Yes, and if you are smart, you will source it from ReconBrothers.com, because we only sell the good stuff. Guys, if you learned some things from this video, make sure to leave a like. Don't forget to dry fire and do it correctly. Thanks for watching, and you'll see us next time again.